Welcome to Lesson 3 of Section 2, Ordering Fractions and Decimals. Now, we previously looked at comparing fractions with other fractions and decimals with other decimals. Now we'll have a mix of both. So the first example says, which number is larger, 9 over 10 or 24 hundredths? So you can either change both of these numbers to fractions or change both of them to decimals. So I'm going to show you each way, and then you can choose whichever method you like best. So let me start by changing 9 over 10 to a decimal. Well, since it's divided by 10, I just need to move my decimal one place to the left to make it 0.9. Now that they're both decimals, we just need to compare place value. Now you can add a 0 onto 9 so that it has the same number of place values as 0.24. So if we look at the tens place, we see that 9 is larger, so let's circle 9 over 10. Now let's try this again by changing both to fractions. So to change 24 hundredths in the fraction, you can write it as 24 over 100. Now when we compare fractions, we like to have common denominators. So let's find an equivalent fraction for 9 over 10. Well, since we have 24 over 100, I'm just going to multiply 9 over 10 by 10 to make that over 100 as well. When I do that, I get 90 over 100. So now look at the two fractions, 24 hundredths or 90 hundredths. Which one is larger? That would be 9 over 10. So we got the same answer as before, so you can choose either method. Now we're going to order these numbers in ascending order, which is least to greatest. So I see that I have a couple of decimals here. I have a terminating and a repeating decimal. And I have fractions in various forms, a proper fraction, improper fraction, and even a mixed number. So what I notice about these group of numbers is that some of them are smaller than 1, 0.72, and 3/4, because that is a proper fraction. So I'm going to group them into numbers that are smaller than 1, and then numbers that are greater than 1. 1 4/5 is greater than 1. 13 over 9 is greater than 1 because that's improper, and 1.4 is greater than 1. So I'll just order the values on the left and then order the values on the right and put them all together. So now when I look at 0.72 repeating and 3/4, I'm going to change them both to decimals because I know that 3/4 is 0.75. So now to compare these decimals, I'll compare place value. The tenths value is the same, but if you look in the hundredths place, 2 is smaller. So I'll write that first in the list, and then I'll write 0.75, which corresponds to 3/4. Now let's look at the values that are greater than 1 to see which comes next in the list. I'm going to start by changing 13 over 9 to a mixed number. So we ask ourselves how many times 9 can divide into 13, and that is once. Then 9 times 1 is 9, and if I subtract that from 13, I get 4. So it would be 1 and 4 over 9. Now I can easily change 1 4/5 to a decimal and 1 4/9. These are fractions we have worked with before. 1 4/5 is 1.8. 1 4/9 is 1 4 repeating. And then we have 1.4. So now, if we compare place value, I can write all of these so that they have a hundredths place, 1.80, 1.44, and 1.40. So which one is least? That would be 1.4, then 1.44, which is 13 over 9, and then we have 1.8, which is 1 4/5. Now for the last example, we have to place each decimal and fraction on the number line to help us order them from least to greatest. So let me fill in some of the missing values on the number line. I have 0 and I have 1. So in the middle is a half or 0.5. And between 1 and 2 is 1.5 or 1.5. Now if I look at my first decimal, 45 hundredths, in order to compare that with the values I have on the number line, I'm going to change my decimals so that they are to the nearest hundredths. So now when I compare 0.45 to the values on the number line, I know that that is less than 0.50, so that will go around here on the number line. Now let's look at 1 1/4. A quarter is 0.25, so I have 1.25. That is directly between 1 and 1.5, so I will place that here. Now 0.9 repeating can be written out like this. Now 0.99999 is very close to 1, so I can put that right here on the number line. Now if we look at 25 over 24, I know that 24 over 24 is 1. So I know that 25 over 24 is going to be just slightly greater than 1. So I'm going to put that just to the right of 1 right here. Now let's look at 1 4/7. Now I know that 4/8 is a half. Now I know that 1 4/7 is going to be greater than 1 4/8 or 1 1/2 because when the numerators are the same, the smaller denominator is larger. So I will put that right here. Now lastly we have a third. Now a third is a fraction we have worked with before, that is 0.3 repeating. So if I have 0.33, I see that that's going to go before 0.45 around here on the number line. So then, writing them out from least to greatest, I can just look at the number line and write them out left to right. We have 1/3, 45 hundredths, 0.9 repeating, 25 over 24, 1 1/4, and lastly 1 4/7. So now you can move on to the next video in this lesson.